I think we're talking about the wrong disconnect, okay? Why aren't we talking about the disconnect between the Sacramento Kings and Domantas Sabonis? And your segue strikes again. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we talking about the fact that nobody brings up Domantas Sabonis when it comes to the future plans? Is it that obvious that he's not a part of the future plans? So let's just assume that Domantas Sabonis really wants to win. Let's just assume that, okay? How can you hear what Scott Perry is saying and think to yourself, yeah, I'm definitely going to be included in those plans, right? I'm Domantas Sabonis, and I hear that Scott Perry is saying, this thing is going to take time, and hey, trust me, Kings fans, Kings Nation, this thing is going to take time, but we will get it right. And the Sam Amick quote that got aggregated, the 3 to 5 years, and how much Scott Perry came on these airwaves and said, hey, there's no pushback. There's no pushback. Vivek knows this is going to take forever. And Domantas Sabonis is 29 years old. This is what Sam Amick had to say about Domantas Sabonis in an article, what was this, last week? For Sabonis' part, league sources say the 29-year-old big man has heeded that call for patience, and talking about the patience that Scott Perry has mentioned. His contract runs through 2027-2028 with a combined $94 million owed in the next 2 seasons, meaning his market is inevitably limited by the sheer magnitude of the money owed. Teams like Washington, Phoenix Suns, and Chicago, also, let me just throw in Toronto, that's from Jake Fisher today, have shown significant interest in the past and are still believed to be on his short list of possible suitors. But Sabonis is prepared to remain in a Kings jersey for the foreseeable future. Kyle, can you search the definition of foreseeable for me as I finish this up? He has been out since November 19th with a partial tear of his left meniscus and was scheduled to be reevaluated within the next week, which, by the way, I haven't heard anything on. Have you?
Sorry, say that again. I was looking
on Domantas Sabonis.
His injury update?
Well, yeah, they said reevaluated within the next week. That was Sam.
Well, yeah, that was based on the original Shams tweet that said reevaluated in 3-4 weeks.
Right, but we haven't heard anything.
No. We haven't had any update on whether he's been reevaluated, will be reevaluated.
Okay, do you have the definition of foreseeable?
Adjective, foreseeable, able to be predicted.
Interesting.
I mean, it's technically able to be foreseen or predicted, but of course it's foreseeable.
Okay.
So maybe we need a definition of foreseen.
Yes.
Foresee, be aware of beforehand or predict. So to be predicted.
Yes, to be predicted. As we kind of funnel this thing through, I have, I guess, a prediction based on what I've heard, what you've heard, what we've heard, and this is what it is. This is what the whole thing sounds like to me. Sabonis knows that this season is a wash, right? He hasn't been healthy anyway. His value is not good, and his agent is probably telling him as such. And I know, obviously, Raptors are interested. Their team's interested. Don't get me wrong. You also have to tango with two. And just because the Raptors are interested, that doesn't mean that the Kings are going to take that package. I don't know that the Kings are in a position where they just want to offload Domantas Sabonis. I think they would want to get some level of value. So we don't know what that package would look like. I think he uses this season to get healthy. Meanwhile, the Kings clean out the deck, right? Somewhat clean out the deck. DeMar DeRozan, maybe Malik Monk. And to end the season, he balls out on a bad team. We know that the end of the season is pretty light as well. He gets his numbers right, and he heads into this offseason, checks in on value and his suitors, okay? And it just starts a rinse and repeat cycle ever so often. So he ends this season. If he gets back to balling at that all-NBA level, checks in at the end of the season. Okay, cool. Value's still not there. He comes in next season. Now there's only 2 years left on his contract, and as Kyle said, he might be offered an extension. He may not be offered an extension. If he's not offered an extension, okay, cool. So y'all are telling me there's a 2-year timeline. I don't see why the Kings would offer Domantas Sabonis an extension. It doesn't really make sense with what they're telling us their timeline is. So he goes into next season knowing that he is now on a similar path of De'Aaron Fox where, all right, I didn't sign the extension. They didn't offer me one. De'Aaron didn't sign it. So now we got 2 years to figure this thing out. Domantas Sabonis comes in highly motivated to start off next season and balls out. Trade deadline or trade season opens, check in. Now there's only 2 years left on the deal. And at some point, if they deem that his value is to the level of a De'Aaron or some of these other guys, we will get a requested trade from Domantas Sabonis. Unless something just works itself out on its own, because I do think that the Kings are looking to move him, but we would get a requested trade from Domantas Sabonis whenever he and his agent decide that his value is where it needs to be to say, hey, Kings, I'm not trying to screw anybody over. We feel like you can get good value. Here's a list of teams. Let's get this thing going. I think it's that simple. And nobody is talking about it. And the fact that Scott Perry won't even talk about Domantas Sabonis in a future sense tells me all I need to know. So Domantas Sabonis is settling in here, getting healthy, right? Cleaning diapers. And then once everybody is kind of more settled in, each year, hey, we're going to start checking in. You do this in life all the time. Maybe you do it yourself, right? You give yourself a 2-year plan. I will leave this company if I don't make director in 2 years. That's what happened to me. I was flying up the ranks at my old company. I was obviously came in as an assistant, whatever. Eventually, I was senior manager, right? What comes after senior manager? Director. So 1 year goes by. Oh, Alan, we need you to do more of this. Another year goes by. Oh, Alan, we need you to do more of that. Then it just seemed like they just didn't want to make me director. Then in the midst of some layoffs, oh, you guys are trying to save money. So I don't think you're going to make me a director. So you hop on LinkedIn. And right now I would say Domantas Sabonis is getting hit up by recruiters a little bit. Okay, maybe talking back and forth, but he's not actively looking for a job, right? You know how it goes? It starts out, yeah, if something is a perfect situation, let's talk about it. Then it turns into, man, I think I am going to start looking a little bit. Then it turns into, no, I need to go now. So we're not there with Domantas Sabonis, but there has been no conversation about this team attempting, because it hasn't worked, right? They got one swing at it. Zach LaVine didn't work. When they moved on from De'Aaron Fox, they had plateaued. At least that's how it was felt. They moved on from Mike Brown. There's all the rumor mill with Mike Brown and Domantas Sabonis and some of the other players on the team. So now we're here, and he does not get talked about at all as far as future plans. We'll talk about Keegan. We'll talk about Keon Ellis. They had to come on and debunk Keon Ellis. And there's no conversation going on about a guy who is making this amount of money. Kyle, listen to this. This is based on AAV, okay? I'm going to read off all the guys that are getting paid more than Domantas Sabonis, and then we get to Domantas Sabonis. And when I read this last night, Kyle, I know I was a little delirious, even though baby number 2 has been sleeping well. I did not read off one person making more money than Domantas Sabonis who they are not building around, right? And then after Domantas Sabonis, it's kind of the same thing, okay? So I'm going to get all the way to Domantas Sabonis. Shea, Booker, Tatum, Embiid, Antetokounmpo, Davis, Jaylen Brown, De'Aaron Fox, Jimmy Butler, Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, Steph Curry, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Luka, Bam, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Jamal Murray, LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, Kawhi Leonard, Lauri Markkanen. Lauri is a weird one, but they're telling us they're still building around him. Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, Pascal Siakam, Domantas Sabonis. Everybody ahead of him, they are building around him. Now, after Domantas Sabonis, Franz Wagner building around him. Scotty Barnes building around him. Zach LaVine is the other aberration, if you will. Trae Young is an interesting one. What's going on with Trae Young? On the trade market. OG Anunoby building with him, right? Maybe not around him, with him. Jaren Jackson Jr. building around him. At least they're claiming that. Tyrese building around him. LaMelo Ball, trade. Brandon Ingram building around him for now. Kyrie, crazy Mavs situation. So my point is, all these other teams that have given this level of money, they are building around this player, or they're getting ready to move off of him. So it's Domas and it's Trae. And we have not really heard Scott Perry say anything as far as building around Domas. So it's just so funny to me that it is very clear where this thing is headed, and for some reason, nobody cares.
So here's where you could then go to the other point, which is, we know Domantas Sabonis wants to win, because you made the assumption at the beginning, Domantas Sabonis wants to win. Now let's work in a world where he wants to win in Sacramento, specifically. Like, obviously, that could be interpreted as, like, he'd rather just stay in Sacramento than win. Let's just frame it as he wants to win specifically in Sacramento. This summer is a very important summer for Domantas Sabonis' future because, and again, this is going to get a little nerdy, but I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. He's now been in the NBA for 10 years, which means he's now eligible to sign what is essentially a veteran max extension, which means that he can get paid up to 35% of the salary cap going forward. Mm-hmm. So this summer, assuming he doesn't make All-NBA, because I don't think he's going to play enough games or the Kings will be good enough to get there, he'll be eligible for a 3-year extension somewhere in the ballpark of $180 to $190 million over 3 years. Rough average, about $60 million a year. Domantas Sabonis could go to the Sacramento Kings and his representatives and say, hey, we want to be here long term. We want to sign the 3-year max extension. We'll be in Sacramento until we're 35. This is my last big payday. I would like to be a King for life, essentially. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of his career, he might go somewhere else on a minimum, like these, like Westbrook or DeRozan. But he's like, I want to spend the prime of my career in Sacramento. We will sign a 3-year extension. It doesn't even have to be the max. I just want a 3-year extension to stay in Sacramento. That's where the conversations kind of have to start between the Kings and Sabonis about, like, hey, what is the plan long term? Do we want to extend Sabonis for 3 years and have him get paid like a number 1 or number 2 guy? Or do we say, actually, Sacramento, we're not interested? Or does Sabonis say, actually, we're not interested in signing the long-term extension? Those are conversations that I think will be very interesting this summer, because I think that's when we'll know exactly what direction this Sabonis situation is headed.
Yeah, I don't know why the Kings would give him that extension. Now, you do have to pay someone, okay? And Zach LaVine will be off the books. If the Kings sit there and say, hey, we know that we need at least a couple vets. If you want to play through the rebuild and things like that, cool. We'll let you do that. You've given enough to this organization. We'll let you do that. Then separately, I would be having the same conversation that I have about Devin Booker and about Dame, where I think, and it wouldn't just be me, it would turn into the NBA world saying Domas was trying to get cashed out, right? Then becomes a conversation of, is he being loyal, or how much does he care about winning? That would be a question, because there's no way at that point you would trust that you're going to, maybe you could get to the playoff. Like if you get AJ Domantas and Keegan takes a leap, right? Cool. You might be able to have a cute little fun thing. And I'm only calling it cute for Domantas Sabonis' timeline. Domantas and Keegan could turn into something years from now, but Domantas Sabonis would not really be in the picture or still in his prime. So then that would be the conversation of, does his brother just want to get paid and kick it in Napa, right? Which is his prerogative to do, but that would turn into the conversation. Then there's a conversation of, is that what, do the Kings want to allow him to do that? Or is Scott Perry saying, sorry, bro, we don't really want to do that. We are trying to cash in for your value and get something back for you.
Which again, at that point, which is why, again, since we've started doing this show and the whole De'Aaron thing was going on, I've made this point so clear. The summer of 2026 is when we will know what Domantas Sabonis' future is. That's the moment either for the Kings to say, actually, we're going to move off of you and try and get a big deal, or we're going to sign you to an extension because you want an extension. Or Sabonis might say, actually, I don't want to extend in Sacramento, which could force Sacramento's hand. Those conversations are going to have to start happening this summer because of the extension eligibility.
Let me know if I'm crazy here, but the whole foreseeable future thing, doesn't that kind of tell you that at the very least Domantas Sabonis wants to see if the Kings will give him that extension? Because if he didn't want to sign that extension, and I know we just had on Yossi Gozlin and Keith Smith, but if he didn't want to sign the extension in Sacramento, wouldn't he want to be traded now so then he could sign the extension somewhere else?
Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. Which is what De'Aaron Fox got the benefit of by getting traded in February, was that he could sign the extension in August. Now, the Spurs always had the intention of signing him, so it wouldn't have mattered when he got traded. But the benefit of getting traded in February is that the 6-month clock to acquire your bird rights ended in the summer, so then Fox could get the extension before the season ever started, which is, again, protection if you get hurt or something like that. But in Sabonis' situation, you want to get traded at least by the deadline of 27, so that way next team can sign you to the 35% extension that you would get either in Sacramento or with another team.
Right, but what I'm saying is him saying I'm chilling right now says he at the very least wants to see that does mean that he would like to stay in Sacramento at some level because he wants to see, will y'all sign me? Now, he could still get traded eventually off that extension, but I don't know if anybody's going to trade for him at $60 million.
Well, for 5 years is the other part. Like, if you're signing that extension, you're signing it with the intention of him being there through the unless you like Blake Griffin him like the Clippers did, where they gave him the extension and immediately traded him. But again, you're signing it with good intentions of, by doing this deal, you will be the face of our franchise for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and my whole point to this is there's been no rhetoric like that from Scott Perry. Zero. There's been no rhetoric, right? He's come in and he's paid Keegan Murray, right? And they've done hey, Keegan's going to be our guy for a while. I don't know where Domantas Sabonis falls in the Kings' plans, and since I don't know, it feels like I do know. It feels like he ain't in their plans.
See, but what is the plan is the thing that still no one can articulate. What exactly they're doing is still unclear.
Well, they are not allowed to say a rebuild is like a curse word in the Kings organization. You can't say it, or you got to put a penny or a dollar in the curse jar. But that's what they're doing. And if you're rebuilding, you're probably not, he's not Udonis Haslem because he's making too much money. You're probably not going to hold on to a 29-year-old Domantas Sabonis. You could, but the problem is this. The difference, it's funny because De'Aaron just got cashed out. People think that De'Aaron, they thought at the time that De'Aaron was overpaid, but they're further along in their timeline. You can't sign Domantas Sabonis to an extension now when you don't even have your Wemby. You don't even have any of your draft picks that you think are. You got Wemby, you got a Rookie of the Year, and you got a Dylan Harper that people are really high on, and Carter Bryant can't even play. Carter Bryant, can you imagine if Carter Bryant was on the Kings? We would talk about him literally 3 hours of the day, and he don't even play on the Spurs.
Yeah, but I guess the counterpoint, though, if we ignore the Spurs example specifically, the Jazz made the call, even though they had multiple picks on the table for Markkanen, they made the call, right. We're better off just extending him because we can still rebuild and tank, quote unquote, with Lauri Markkanen. And while I think Sabonis is an excellent player, and I think this Kings won't be able to do better in the next 5 years if they trade him, they can also still tank with Domantas Sabonis. This year is proving that you can still rebuild and tank with Domantas Sabonis on the team.
You're right, but it's a little further. The Jazz, again, a little further along in the process. Marketing, I guess you could argue when they did it, they weren't as far along.
Yeah, Markkanen was an all-star the first year.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's no wrong answer here.
And here's the thing, though. When they did we all knew that they were going to stink. And by the way, Jazz fans are upset because they've been playing Nurkic and Kevin Love too much. I just read that yesterday. But we all knew they were going to stink, and we all knew they were in a position to get those draft picks. And the other part of it is a lot of people think that the Jazz made a mistake keeping Markkanen. That's the other thing we haven't talked about. A lot of people don't think it was the right move.
No, it's not a good contract right now, but the Jazz are not planning to tank for much longer. They have gone through the hard losing. Now, whether they have a superstar to go for it, debatable, but they have a bunch of young talent, and they believed the whole way Markkanen was the centerpiece of what they were doing, that any offers they were getting for Markkanen was not worth just keeping him around.
But again, it depends on how long things are going to take. Markkanen is 28 right now, and they have their picks. Domantas Sabonis is 29, and they have nothing besides Keegan Murray.
Yep.
And Nick Clifford, who we're going to go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, that's why there's no bad answers here, but it's all going to get resolved next summer once those extension talks start.